I started writing professionally in 2013. Yeah, I started writing professionally in 2013. I got an internship over at Interactive One in New York City.
Hmm.
They're a black owned media company that owns a whole bunch of different publications, some of which are still there, some of which aren't, like Urban Daily, News One, that type of shit.
Yeah.
And I wound up making some connections through there, particularly my boss and now friend Jerry Barrow, who's a legend. Man's written for The Source. He had Scratch Magazine going. Like he's Jerry Barrow. If y'all don't know who that is, he's one of the greats. Go look him up. He also has a really great podcast called The Fathers Who Bother. He interviews like rappers and actors and people in media who are dads. It's
Awesome.
cute. He had open Mike Eagle on one. It was tight. Um, so I kind of worked my way through a handful of places. I worked over at a place called Watch Loud for a couple of years. And then I wound up getting let go from that job
Tough.
um, the day Trump got elected, like
Man,
election
that was
day.
a badass day. That was a terrible
Like
day.
like election day, they told us like, yeah, we're not carrying y'all into next year. So from there, Jerry connected me with Z over at DJ Booth, and that's when I started writing for them. And the first piece I ever wrote for DJ Booth was actually about injury reserve. It
Oh,
was right after this album that's on my shirt, Floss, came out,
yeah, great
and I
album.
wrote a whole piece about it. And that's kind of where my tenure over there started. And then from like I just kind of built up some clips from there, just kind of got some shit off about a lot of classic albums that I really enjoyed, got to interview a whole bunch of people I've been wanting to talk to my entire life. I would say that's probably the point where I really started to like go dumb, and like stuff started to like
uh,
line up for me. I really felt I was surrounded by so many talented and dope people that I needed to like step my game up and really like bring myself to another level. So I worked hard at it, and I managed to get some incredible clips that I'm so grateful for to
yeah.
this day. Like and then starting probably around and then because at this point I was working full time for another website. I was working in the college humor bubble for a
Okay.
little while over at a site called Dorkly. So I was like, so I was freelancing, but
This job,
I had this
basically,
job.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had like the job that I could claim on my taxes and make sure that I make sure that I wasn't make sure that I wasn't like owing a whole bunch of money. So I would still get a return, but I was freelancing because it was weird.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
missed that a lot. But um around then I started freelancing for a handful of other places. I got some clips over at Complex and Pigeons and Planes.
Hmm.
And um I did my one of the biggest pieces I've done so far is the big injury reserve self-titled profile. I
Yeah.
interviewed a whole bunch of them, like all the members, their manager, um, one of their photographers, a couple of the producers who worked on the project, and one of the video directors. It was a lot of people. They were touring at the time,
Hmm.
so it was just like they were on like the other side of the planet. So like they were 14 hours in the future. So if it was like 12 p.m. for me one day, it would be like 2 a.m. for them the next day. So that was a lot to do, but like it was I equate that period of my life with like or like that specific piece. I was doing it on the side of my job. So like I would go to lunch and just be like doing the interviews in like these little pods they had. It was like when Method Man and Wu Tang were doing interviews for the Source back when 36 Chambers came out. Like Method Man mentioned that they would be doing interviews in the Source building, and Ghost would be getting fucking beepers to go make drug trades, and he would just like leave in the middle of the interview and like go back and forth and just like deal drugs during an interview. And obviously, doing what I did isn't dealing drugs during an interview, but like I kind of equate it to like that was just me like getting my side shit on the side and coming back to the job. It
Yeah,
was
having your cake and eating it too, man.
man, that was crazy. And then that piece came out, and I got let go from that job the day after that piece came out.
Damn. They said
So
thanks.
that was when
Peace.
I was that was when I had to be like, well, you know, like now you don't have that safety net anymore. So you really gotta like
Go
you
dumb.
gotta like really dive back into the freelance thing. And I kept it up the DJ booth, and then when the AudioMack transition happened, I'm still going there. And I'm just really I'm just very grateful that people care about anything I had to say. Like I'm
Yeah.
just a guy. I just like music and I don't shut up about shit that I like. That's just been my whole MO since I was a kid. Like music and film saved my life. They helped me be able to learn how to talk
Yeah.
about anything.
Yeah.
Like that was like it's like really foundational for me. Like this is just like what I love. And to have, people like y'all care, or to have anybody reading like just like care about the things I have to say, because like I'm just a person.
Yeah.
It's I try not to lose sight of that, because it's very easy to get jaded and to
Mm-hmm.
treat this as nothing but a job, and it's hard. But like I love this. I wouldn't be doing this. Like I'd be doing this even if I wasn't getting paid.
Right. Without now, warn me if I'm like I don't want to be like pocket watching you or nothing like that. But you said now without the like I work for this site, it's my job. I basically put in my 40 hours at this place, and now moving into a space of freelance journalism, like without talking too much about your money. I'm sorry. Like how do you support yourself via freelance journalism? Like, are you paid basically for what you write more as opposed to being like an actual employee for one place and you get a paycheck, or I'm just confused about how that works for you.
So basically, because I freelance, like, yeah, actually, no, I want to break this down. So the way it works, um usually, like, it'll start with an idea. Either an editor will reach out to me with an idea, or I reach out to the editor with an idea. And then if the pitch is accepted, then we move on. We reach out to publicists, or I start drafting a piece, depending on whether it's an interview or a review or an op-ed or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
So I write the thing, I conduct the interview, I do whatever transcription or like research is required, and then I turn the piece in. It gets published, it gets edited, and then it gets published. And then I send in an invoice. Like I'm just like, hey, like for example, like I might hand in a review that's like $250, and then I just like create the invoice, send it, and then uh depending on how fast they pay, because some places pay really really fast, some places don't. Like
Yes.
the usual industry standard is net 30. So like it's like you get paid sometime within 30 days, which is
Uh-huh.
like a really broad window.
Yeah, it is.
But some places pay in like 3-4 days. It depends
Mm-hmm.
on what service they use. Like it could be anywhere from like 3 days to 30 days. And the great thing about where I am as a freelancer is that I have cultivated a little, like, it's almost kind of like a full-time job, but like not really,
Mm-hmm.
because I have like dependable places that I can go and be like, hey, I have an idea, and it's more than likely gonna land, right?
Yeah.
So I have like some places that pay kind of fast, so I can get the money that I need quickly, and some places that pay decent but take a while. So
Mm.
I can just like stack up a whole bunch of them, and then just have something to look forward to, like week to week or month to month, depending on how it is. Um, it's been really nice to kind of just like I've had to finesse it, because I'm really lucky to be in the position that I am, because a lot of writers aren't. Like some people have a hard time even getting into one publication, let alone like the
Multiple.
three that
Yeah.
I kind of like frequent at this point. And and that's something else I try not to lose sight of.
I want to bring up Real Notes again. We have mentioned it a couple times already. I think, very obviously we have like a music and film related podcast. I will say I enjoy listening to your podcast because I like movies. I love watching movies. I don't find myself a ton of time to do it, but listening to your podcast, one, makes me realize I'm definitely no movie buff. Two, that your podcast makes me want to watch more movies and even listen to more music. Like when I'm listening to these artists talk, like I really get a fervor to like go listen to either the music that they're speaking about directly, or their music more, or what have you. So particularly, um, the episode that I think was the most like that for me was Armand Hammer, Billy Woods, and Elucid. That interview there was super fun. It was cool to hear them come on and be willing to talk to you for like almost a couple hours, and
Yeah.
just like really shoot the shit about movies, about really anything, music, movies, and otherwise. I guess maybe here's my question, man. Like, what do you feel like is your style or your approach to interviewing people, and what is the best way for you to feel natural and make these interviews feel natural to you and the artist?
Oh man, that's such a good question. First off, thank you. I appreciate that because like that's really what I try. That's really what I aim for with all of this. Like with like when like man, I'm trying to think now. So when it comes to interviews, I haven't really looked at interviews like an interview, like a proper like formal interview in a really long time. I like my shit to be more like conversations.
Absolutely.
So like I write out questions and I do research and I like write and like I have notes and like bullet points that I go through. And I like those to kind of be like a guideline as or like I yeah, I like it to be like a guideline, like a roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So like I really look at like every interview like a roadmap, right? Where like there's a predetermined path that I can take, but I like to leave I like to leave room to go off and like take an exit to
Yeah.
go to a rest stop and like chill at a fucking dingy Burger King and talk about Ghostface if you want. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's I just like to talk. I feel like it's such a simple, like reductive way of putting that, but like I just like to talk to people, and I think that's more interesting
Hmm.
than just like question answer type shit. I don't know how I managed to do all of that. Sometimes it's just like I'll go back and like listen to them while I'm editing and be like, wow, like I actually managed to turn that into a conversation because I'm nervous as hell before I do all of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I know I
Feel
care.
you.
You know, like
Yeah.
I know I
Right.
care about something if I'm like scared
Yeah.
before I come out. Like here, I was like, damn, like I gotta like, am I gonna do okay? Like you know, like if like that's I guess it's kind of good to like I guess like with my style to like really directly answer your question. Um, I um
Wait, real quick, just to interrupt you for a
yeah
moment.
yeah
I
yeah
do think that we have a similar approach or style of interviewing in the way that, like, I will have questions prepared that I know are going to lead me in a certain direction, or if a certain conversation breaks down, that I'm gonna pull from one of those questions and get me on to the next conversation. So like, basically, I know there are certain things that I want to know through this interview, that are
right
just individually based to that artist and what I think they probably want out of an interview, and then a thing that's super important, I think, to any interview, and you certainly do this, is the willingness to allow the guest to sort of also drive the conversation to a certain place if they seem
right
particularly interested in wherever that's going. Because ultimately, what I try to get out of interview is like for them to have fun having that conversation. So if they're going
mm-hmm.
somewhere and you're trying to redirect them back to these questions that you have, like you may cut off really great content for that conversation, moving forward. And so, like you said, like you were kind of willing to, something that they brought up, like you would roll with that. And then if that conversation ended up kind of coming to a close, then you had something prepared to kind of bring up another point.
Right. Yeah. And like that's what makes a good conversation, you know? Like you would like I feel like a lot of people don't say this, but a good part of being a good interviewer is being a good listener. You know, like listening to what people have to say and like knowing and like kind of having that sixth sense to know when to ask a follow-up question or when
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of let something go.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes good like not even just like interviews because like I do this with all my interviews but it comes out differently in the writing because it's writing and
Mm.
stuff unfortunately usually has to get cut, but like with a podcast like that's kind of what drew me to wanting to do a podcast is that I could kind of just have most of, if not all of the conversation just like be there,
Yeah.
and people can like see that path that we took. And a big part of that is being a good listener, knowing how to read knowing how to read the room, and just like knowing when to be like, oh hey, like, you know, like kind of being like Drewski, just like, what do you mean by that, you know, like it's just like you gotta have those moments.
Yeah.
But like it's just better to approach people like as human beings, as opposed to like,
It's a good
you
rule of
know,
thumb.
like as opposed to like bugs in a bottle, you know, like
Uh-huh.
these aren't like test subjects. They're, you know, like people who have like responsibilities and lives and partners and kids, and, you know, like they put their pants on one leg at a time, and they fucking they fucking like freak out over what movie to pick on Netflix, and
Yeah.
like they don't know what they're gonna make for dinner tonight either, you know, like tapping into that shit is what makes for good shit, good convo. And
Yeah.
yeah,